Hey, good Friday evening to everybody. Welcome to LongShots TV. I'm your host, the Rhino, and we've got a very special edition for you tonight. We got a special guest. Simo Buckets is in with us to talk NBA basketball. The season's just kicked off, and we're ready to roll. Simo is the expert, and we trust his judgment on things, and we go to him for advice. So, welcome in, Simo. How you doing tonight, man?
Doing good, man. It's a Friday. I am. It has been a long week, and I know everyone's excited for basketball, but for us who are insiders, I mean, this is kind of a breathe situation where we can finally just sit back and finally relax and watch some actual basketball instead of doing research for the last couple of months. It's been crazy, man.
Right. All right. Well, that's a
Yeah,
good thing. We've got a few
yeah.
games going on already. Cleveland, Toronto. Cleveland's up by what is that? 5-6 right now. Orlando and Detroit's just underway. Indiana and Brooklyn's just underway also, and then there's one, two, three, four, five more games tonight.
Yeah.
Simo, when you were looking at the beginning of the season and getting your research together, did anything stand out to you about the upcoming season?
I think the one thing that is on everyone's mind is obviously the Golden State Warriors when it comes to gambling. When it comes not
Right.
just gambling, but when it comes to the overall landscape of this team, and I think the one thing a lot of people are missing from the standpoint of just overall perspective of this team is yes, they are talented as all get up when it comes to their starting rotation, but once you get past guys like Andre Iguodala and Sean Livingston, it just severely drops off. There's nobody there. I mean,
Right.
you saw it last night. If you watched last night's Clipper and Portland game, you saw a guy like Maurice Spates. You saw a guy like Festus Ezeli, who were on both Portland and Los Angeles, and those two guys were big time factors on the Golden State Warriors a year ago. And those guys were bottom rung guys. Now they're main factors within their new team. So you're
Right.
just kind of anticipating a lot from this Warrior team for people thinking like, Vegas had them originally at what, like 65 plus, 65 and a half, 66 and a half wins for the season.
Right.
That's outrageous. I mean, those are obviously numbers that are just trying to spike the general gambler to try and bet the over because people think that they're just going to be so good. I think the problem is, and this is the thing that really I've noticed, and my main key to what I've noticed this offseason and starting of the year, not just because of the Spurs game, but they're going to win their games. They're going to be fine. They're going to win 60. The problem is people thinking that it's just going to be a shoo-in for the NBA Finals. I would disagree.
Okay.
Depth is a huge, 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 huge factor in the playoffs, and this team simply just doesn't have it outside of Sean Livingston and Andre Iguodala. I mean, they got Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. They're great, but outside of that, it's a severe drop off
So
compared
you
to a
don't
year
see
ago.
them putting up the same kind of numbers that they did last year.
Oh no, this team is not going to win 70 games. Look, what we saw last year was absolutely special.
Oh yeah.
We're probably never going to see that again. And if a team were to challenge that, it would have to be a lot like an organic growth, like the Warriors did the last 2 or 3 years up till last year, where they really put it all together in the regular season, and then they got to the postseason, and again, their depth just could not quite come through. They had some matchup problems. Their big men got hurt, and you saw them fall off. But for the most part, what you saw last year was unbelievable, and this year it just will not be the same.
Well, they are playing New Orleans tonight, and the total is
Oh, they're gonna be
222 and a half. I mean, so obviously, either that's a plot line or they are going to go at it and score some points because, like you were telling me earlier, there's not a lot of defense at this time of the year.
yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. The defense is lacking. I mean, you saw it and you've seen it the last couple of nights. It's been guaranteed over 200 points in pretty much every game except for the Spurs and Kings game last night. Every game has been over 200 and it's or at 200. It's been pretty much the same all these games at the beginning of the season. And so knowing that if you see a line that is under 200, you have to bet the over. I mean, I'm not a gambling expert by any means, but from the standpoint of seeing these games and knowing what goes on early on in the year, if you see an over under that's under 200 and you don't take that, that's a joke. I know that the NBA obviously or Vegas definitely puts a lot of their games around like 200, 202, 205, things like that.
Right.
But if you see a game where you see an offensive juggernaut facing off against another offensive juggernaut and it's a lower than you see, just bet the over all day.
All right. Good advice. What about LA? I mean, they were absolutely horrendous last year.
Yeah.
Couldn't do anything. Of course, Kobe Bryant leaving. It's the whirlwind tour. So basically, they're playing out the season just for Kobe to, say his
Right.
goodbyes and have a big show out there. Is there any major changes there? Do we see LA, getting back in it? Got a lot of young talent this year, and are they going to do anything with it?
Well, you're not wrong with the Kobe Bryant analysis. This was a Kobe Bryant. The last 24 months has been a Kobe Bryant. Just get him his due and give him his respects. I mean, that's all it was the last 2 years. That's why they crafted the roster around him that they could, so that they could at least have him shell out and be who he was. I think this is going to be a year where they can finally catch their breath and just be like, hey, we're finally rebuilding. There's no pressure. I think from the standpoint of success, though, for the Lakers, that's not going to come this year, just from the standpoint of the division they play in. They play in the same division as the Golden State Warriors, the Clippers, and the Kings and Suns, who the Suns have an amazing backcourt, and the Kings have DeMarcus Cousins, who, in my opinion, is an all-NBA front court type player. So, and the Clippers and Warriors, as we know, were perennial playoff teams a year ago. And the Lakers are just they're at a point where right now they're at the bottom, and all they can do is go up at this point. They're going to improve from a year ago. They're not going to win 16, 17 games like a year ago. They're definitely going to be in that 20-win range, but to people think that they're going to win 30 or more, that's a little outlandish. Now, if they win 30, I wouldn't be shocked because of Luke Walton and his success, but to say that they're going to win 40 and get into that playoff conversation, we got to hold back on that. Now, again, it's a whole new team. It's a whole new atmosphere and level of success for them that they'll be seeing, knowing that they don't have any pressure with Kobe Bryant. But I think for the most part, just tone down the excitement for the Lakers, at least for this year, and see how it plays out. And then as the year moves on, and by the time we get into next year, that's when we'll really know what this team's going to look like.
All right. Now, of course, we couldn't. We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Cleveland, of course, the defending champ. They got their rings the other night, and it was a great night in Cleveland because of Game 2 of the World Series as well going on. Is Cleveland going to have the kind of performance year like they did last year? Are they going to be better? Are they going to be a little worse?
I think that the Cavs, from the standpoint of pressure, have none now, and that's a scary look. If you come in off a championship, and it's kind of like the Warriors from a year ago. Now, they're not going to win 70 games. Don't think I'm crazy when I say this. I don't think they're going to change much when it comes to the regular season. Right. But when it comes to their postseason success, this Cavalier team has nothing but loose limbs now. This team has no pressure from the neck down. No one's freaking out about getting to the championship. LeBron has no pressure to do anything anymore when it comes to this team. And this is pretty much the same team coming back this year. And it's the third year of this entire group altogether, and knowing that, they're going to be a team if LeBron keeps up his play that he has. They're going to be fine, and they're going to defend their Eastern Conference crown. They're going to be back in the NBA Finals. I just don't see how anyone else could see that unless, again, a significant injury or crazy trade happens in the Boston were to get someone crazy. Like what if the Warriors situation didn't work and Kevin Durant went to Boston? I would be like, okay. Boston may take the crown, but unless something crazy happens and unless things just change rapidly, this Cavalier team is all set up to go back to the finals in June of 2017.
Right. Now, Dwayne Wade goes to the Bulls.
Yep.
This is a big deal over there. Do you think he's going to help them at all?
I think the Chicago Bulls, the only real problem they have in transition, they're scary. For those of you that aren't familiar with the word in transition or whatnot, when this team is running, don't get in a running game with the Chicago Bulls because Rondo is scary in transition. You have Dwayne Wade, who historically, when he was with LeBron James, and obviously in his past when he was much faster and younger, is scary in transition. Obviously, Jimmy Butler's young, and then the rest of that team is built to run. They're scary, and defensively they're scary. The only problem they have, and they're going to have all season, unless they find a way to mix in some of the bigger guys like Nikola Mirotic, they don't have a shooting strength unless like Dwayne Wade did last night, where he shot he made 4 threes. if they can get that from Dwayne Wade on a regular basis, like 3 to 4 threes, and you get a guy like Rondo finding a way to pull up from mid range, and you get a guy like Jimmy Butler who can pull up from the outside, and obviously other guys stepping in and finding ways to open up the floor, then this team will be absolutely dangerous. And they still have to click. You can't. Right. Dwayne Wade's been in Miami for 13 years. This is his 14th year in the league. Clearly, he is the way he plays and the way he looks health wise. He looks much older than he really is. Like, you look at LeBron and Melo, and they don't look like they're definitely 13 years in the league. They still look like they're in their prime. Wade is definitely past his prime. And if he stays healthy and this team clicks and gets it going and gets it working, they're fantastic. It's just the fact that they still play in a very tough division. They play, the Bulls play in the same division as the Cavs. They play in the same division as the up-and-coming Detroit Pistons. And this newly vamped Indiana Pacers and the Milwaukee Bucks are always a tough team, especially if they get it going with Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, this team in Chicago has to get through that gauntlet. And they also have a very tough schedule at the beginning portion of the season. If you just look at that schedule with a blind eye, the first month of the year is an absolute war fest for them. It is just brutal on every account. So if they can find a way to get through this first month as a new team and stay somewhat afloat, then yeah, I think Chicago will be dangerous. But I think that the two questions are keeping that chemistry together because they're brand new as a team, on top of finding a way to ultimately gel as a team, but also get through this early portion to stay competitive in that vaunted Central Division.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So let's jump over the Eastern Atlantic with the Celtics and the Nets, Knicks, Sixers, and the Raptors. Obviously, Raptors had a pretty good year, so to speak. But the Knicks and the Nets and the Sixers were just down in the dumps. I mean, Boston was good. I think Boston did win that division.
Toronto won the division last year.
Okay,
but it was
But Boston's right there. I mean, well, I guess the point I'm trying to make is it seemed to me kind of like a garbage division. Do you see any improvements coming over there?
Well, this division a year ago, walking into the 2015-2016 season, was pretty much Boston and Toronto and then a three-ring circus, because the year before, if you remember, the Knicks were garbage, Philly was garbage, and Brooklyn somehow found a way to just scramble their way into the playoffs, which nobody who's an insider understands how, because that's still a mess over there in Brooklyn. And Brooklyn last year showed their true colors of being a garbage organization. And obviously Philadelphia, we know what they're going through, and knowing that Ben Simmons is hurt, that doesn't help them any. But they are getting better because they're getting older, and that helps. The Knicks, they actually improved heavily last year. If you remember, the Knicks had their same win total from 2014-2015. They got it, I think, sometime in like game 40 or game 50. So they improved heavily this season, and Kristaps Porzingis was a huge portion of that. And they also just added Derrick Rose, who they're again, kind of like the Bulls, they're going to need to find a way to gel. And if they do, they may find themselves sneaking into the postseason. But that is up for debate. That is a question between all of us insiders that, when it comes to the Knicks, a lot of East Coast people think the Knicks are going to get in because they're just excited. But if you're a realist, it's up in the air. It all depends on what's going to happen. They have all the talent. You saw it on opening night against the Cavs. Yeah, the Cavs dominated. But the Knicks are just a new team, and they looked fine. They don't have any chemistry. They clearly don't have all their pieces set together yet. But once they do, they could be a dangerous club. But you're right. For the most part, Toronto is the same team. They're still very scary. I just worry about DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry in the playoffs because they were absolute hot garbage in the playoffs last year. Yeah. And the Boston Celtics they've had this problem for the last 4 or 5 years. And I was on CLNS radio prior to joining NBA Lead. And they're an unbelievable bunch. The problem is that they don't have a go-to guy. They have Avery Bradley, who's unbelievable in defense. Isaiah Thomas is a very tiny, very good player. He cannot carry you in the fourth quarter. Jay Crowder, great glue guy, and Amir Johnson. Al Horford is just a very, very, very fundamental big man. They just don't have the it piece. And if Jaylen Brown becomes that sometime this year, look out for Boston. Or if they get a big piece, look out. But for now, it's up in the air. Boston can still win the division, but for Toronto and Boston, it's between them two, and if the Knicks find a way to click, then they can jump in the mix. But Boston, when it comes to postseason success, they just need that go-to guy. Because outside of that, they're set. They're all ready to go.
Awesome. Let's see. I got a couple of comments over there. One is Ricky says he loves the old school Sonics hat. Simo missed those Rain Man 7 glove days.
Yeah.
And one says Peyton Schlurf Kemp.
Oh, Detlef Shrimp. Yeah, man. Heck yeah. Man, we know it out here. And if you want to see something even better, well, I can't show it. It's too dark in here. But I have like an old school Sonics like banner in here and everything. It's legit. But
Awesome.
but I don't know if you guys have heard, and I'm sure people who are watching know this, at least locally, for sure. Chris Hansen is the multi-millionaire, billionaire guy here who wants to get the Sonics back. He's been on board since 2011 trying to get this organization back, and news broke on opening night that Chris Hansen apparently now has offered the city of Seattle, because if you don't, I mean, most people nationally don't know this, but back in May we had a vote for Safeco Field, which is where the Mariners play. The same city and the same district of that city is the Soto district, where a lot of businesses incorporate themselves, and the Seattle Sonics are actually have a lot of land scaped out for there. The Chris Hansen does, sorry, and he's the guy who's trying to get the Sonics back, and that is right next to Safeco Field. And so what's happening is the vote went down 4-5. It was
Wow.
no vote. It was bad. It was dramatic. It was ridiculous. But there was public money that would have needed to be put in play.
Do the fans there just not want a team, Simo?
No, this has been I would honestly say since about 2010, it's been we want them back. I think a lot of people were discouraged after 2007 or 2008 when they left. I think a lot of fans were discouraged with the ultimate circumstance because it's just a really deep situation. But
Right.
a lot of fans were discouraged, and I think a lot of people were turned off for about 3 years. Then around 2010, 2011, it was like, look how good the Thunder are. That could have been here, And I think that really jump-started a lot of people. There's always been diehard fans here in Seattle. I'm a Spurs fan, but I supported the Sonics when they were here. A lot of fans want them back now because they recognize that especially with the business motto that the NBA has, it's getting so much better each and every year that if you just put that in this market, which is already a top 15 market minimum at its worst in the NBA, that's a middle of the road market on its bad years. Like, you have a bad year, that's still great. And so the NBA needs to come back here for that perspective. But big news broke on opening night that Chris Hansen was offering to pay 100% of the arena deal that the city would want. And the problem is the Port of Seattle and local politics are all a mess. So they're trying to get that fixed. But I hear that a vote may come down sometime in December of getting an arena. And if the CBA goes through, that new teams come in, there could be a new team in Seattle sometime here in the next 2-3 years, which I would be excited about. But knowing the political stance in Seattle, I'm really not holding my breath. I'm not trying to be a negative Debbie Downer, but I'm being honest at the same time. Because if you're going to vote down a 5-4 proposal back in May, when you had the opportunity and these politicians made these heinous, idiotic Snapchat type, narcissistic perspectives on why they voted no, then it's hard to get up for it. But if it happens, you better believe I'll be the first to let y'all know, because I'm gonna be pumped.
Awesome. So. Yeah, there is a page on Sportsbook or SB Nation. Rumors of the Key Arena's demise have been greatly exaggerated. I guess there's been an update since that. And also an article on Game Changer. Arena investors offer to go private. On that. So it looks to me like that's going to happen. It's just a matter of putting the right package together, and
absolutely,
it'll be done up there, which is a good thing for Seattle. They like you said, I thought they wanted it back, but then I didn't hear anything for quite a while. So.
It's a mess here. It's a mess locally. It's a mess locally, nationally. It's not even being leaked because it's such a joke here. I mean, there's so many other problems in the world, as we all know, but here in Seattle, it is getting to a point where it's just, I mean, as we all know, the whole world is getting to a point, but this city is, unfortunately, with the politics and the situations that are going on and everyone trying to fix everything, it's getting out of hand. But we hope that ultimately it gets fixed and that becomes the case and that becomes good. I want to see a team in Vegas, dang it. I think we all want to see a basketball team in Vegas. I mean, look, I am the first to say that I have gone to Vegas numerous times, and I'll tell you what, if they have an NBA basketball team and they ultimately have, I mean, I know they had an all-star game there about 10 years ago, but if they put an all-star game there with an actual team and sponsor it and all that, man, I would tell you what, that would be awesome.
Yeah, well, they got the hockey coming, so
they got the T-Mobile Arena.
Keep your fingers crossed. They may get a team. Well, they're pushing for an NFL team, obviously.
Yeah.
So I think the NBA team might be on the back burner, but
sure.
I think eventually it is going to happen. I think they will get most of the major sports in there, but yeah, that's going to be great for a lot of people. All right, well, let's jump over to the Western Conference and go down to the Southwest with the Mavs, Rockets, Grizzlies, Pelicans, and the Spurs. How we looking out there? That was pretty competitive league, if I remember correctly.
Oh, yeah, no, you're right. A couple years ago in 2014, 2015, that entire division made the Western Conference playoffs. And knowing that last year the division kind of fell off, I mean, it doesn't help when one team wins 67 games and the San Antonio Spurs, and they absolutely dominate the division. Memphis got hurt, obviously, down the stretch, and Houston just found a way to slip in. But Dallas was and obviously New Orleans with their injuries. But for the most part, this is this is going to be an interesting division because the Dallas Mavericks are still a team that have a chance. They have Andrew Bogut and Harrison Barnes now from the Golden State Warriors, and Houston has James Harden and his shenanigans. I don't know what they're ultimately going to do, but I mean, it's up in the air with them as well. It's kind of like the Knicks in the East with knowing what they're going to do this season. And Memphis, if they stay healthy, that's been our talk on the Hoopers log. That's been our talk the whole time. If Memphis stays healthy, they're going to be fine. They're a vaunted, scary team. Yeah. They have all the pieces to do everything. It's just dependent upon health, and the Spurs are the Spurs. I mean, you saw it on opening night. That was the best as a Spurs fan I've probably ever seen them on an opening night with or without Tim Duncan. They looked fantastic, and I'll tell you what, that guy and Jonathan Simmons is not – look, he won't play like that every night, but he was absolutely sensational on opening night. And that's the kind of stuff that keeps teams motivated and keeps them going throughout the season. And New Orleans is – look, Anthony Davis went off opening night, 50 points, 16 rebounds. He was ridiculous. Yeah, and the rest of that stat line was stupid too. He had like 7 blocks or something. It was just dumb. But the thing is that team needs to piece things together and get better chemistry. But I think it's the Spurs division again. It's not because I'm a Spurs fan, but I just think it's their division again. Kawhi Leonard is clearly improving again. LaMarcus Aldridge, Tony Parker, and the bench is improving. They're going to be fine.
Awesome. Okay, over to the Northwest with the Nuggets, the Wolves, the Thunder, and the Blazers, Trailblazers, Jazz. Oklahoma City ran right up there last year and kind of just gassed. I think, just ran out of gas at the end, I guess. Are you seeing them being the same kind of team this year?
This division is first of all, for anybody out there, if there's a bet on online or Vegas or whatever, I guaranteed this on my show. If there is a bet out there when it comes to Coach of the Year, I would bet all. I wouldn't bet that much money. I wouldn't bet a ton of money, but I would bet something. I would put some money down on Coach of the Year in this division. First of all, you got Billy Donovan, who's the second-year coach for Oklahoma City. They just lost Kevin Durant. If this team doesn't drop off, how does Billy Donovan not win Coach of the Year? Minnesota Timberwolves, they've got a very young, stout team. Karl-Anthony Towns, who's a freak. Andrew Wiggins. Zach LaVine, 2-time dunk champion. They're exciting. And Tom Thibodeau's first year, and the way they looked in the preseason, if they can find a way to get to the playoffs and improve in the West, he's got to win Coach of the Year. Denver Nuggets, if they even get into a playoff conversation and get in, there's Michael Malone, Coach of the Year. Terry Stotts with Portland. They lost 4 of their 5 starters from 2014, 2015, jumped into last season, only fell off by 6 games, and actually contested with the Golden State Warriors in the playoffs last year. I mean, look, I don't know how he didn't win Coach of the Year. I was livid. That made me absolutely furious. Not because I live here in the Pacific Northwest, but it made me livid. And then the Utah Jazz, look, I'm going to tell y'all right now about the Utah Jazz. This team has the best bench in the NBA. This team, depth-wise, is absolutely terrifying. They have guys like Boris Diaw, who is a former San Antonio Spur, a great passing big man. Joe Johnson, who was a great player on those early Phoenix Suns days with Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire and all those guys. He was one of the main factors on that team with Sean Marion and all that. And then he went to the Nets and got a little old and has not played great, but he's a fantastic option off the bench. He can still score the ball. Alec Burks is a great scorer. Rodney Hood, George Hill is fantastic fundamentally. Dante Exum's coming back. This team is loaded like when it comes to depth-wise. They're absolutely loaded. Whenever you see this team play someone this year, and you see something funky about it when the Jazz aren't necessarily a team, like let's say the line is like really high and they're playing like a mediocre team and the line is like super low, like Utah's only favored by 4, take Utah and the points because they are going to absolutely destroy a team. They are a tough-based team, and they're a big team. They're really scary. I think the Utah Jazz get to the playoffs this year, and I don't know if they necessarily go far because it'll be the first time that this whole team will have gone to the playoffs. Exactly. But when it comes to regular season betting, take this team all day long early on in the year when you can, because by the time we get to February, I could see this team being favored by 8 or 9 points in most games because they're going to absolutely run teams out of the building from the standpoint of toughness because they're a tough team.
All right.
I think ultimately, though, the Northwest Division, it's going to be run by Portland. Portland is going to be unbelievable. Damian Lillard is in the MVP discussion, but look out for Utah for sure.
Awesome. So there's a little bit of a nugget of wisdom there for the sports bettors. Let's jump over to the Pacific. Warriors, obviously. Clippers, Lakers, Suns, and Kings. Golden State, obviously, I would think is the favorite there. Is there anybody there to challenge them?
Yeah, the only team to challenge the Warriors in this division if things get kind of weird for Golden State, which we saw in Game 1, but if it gets weirder for them, I would say the Clippers. If you watched last night's game on Thursday night between the Clippers and Trailblazers, the Clippers look like a team that's not here to mess around anymore. This is the one thing you got to know about NBA players is that all of them, which I think any of us will, because I mean, shoot, any of you watching, you're obviously a gambler of some kind because you're watching this. But NBA players are all about their money. I mean, they really are. And Blake Griffin is a free agent next summer. This is a year he has to show out. And guys like J.J. Redick are also a free agent next year. You got Brandon Bass off the bench who backs up Blake Griffin's bench. They got a lot of guys who are potential free agents in Los Angeles, so they're going to be absolutely hungry this season. So look out for that. The Clippers could pace the Warriors, not say that they're going to overtake them, but if things get hairy for Golden State, look out for the Clippers. I mentioned Sacramento, Phoenix, and the Lakers. Those teams are all kind of just figuring out and rebuilding, but those other two teams are going to ride the top all year in the Pacific Division. All
right. Okay. It's a great overall picture of the NBA and what's going on out there. If anybody has any questions out there, you can shoot them on over. A specific team, a specific player. Doesn't matter. We're here to answer those questions. We're not going to be on too much longer. We're going to try and wrap this up. Simo, overall, talking as a sports bettor now.
Yep.
Overall, what's your philosophy towards betting these games? Are you a spread guy, an over-under guy? Is there any little bit of wisdom that you can give the viewers to say, hey, this is really my go-to?
I think my go-to is the NBA is a funky betting thing because there's certain times of the year where you would bet one way and then there's a certain time of the year you'll bet another way. Like playoffs, you're going to bet way differently than you would in a middle of December basketball game. That's just the fact. You're going to look at the spread differently. You're going to analyze it differently. Early on right now, what I would do is I would look at some of these games and really do your research on teams and just knowledge of knowing what guys do on certain teams and look at the spread. I look at the spread. I'm a spread guy. If I see a spread that is ridiculous, like opening night, I didn't do well on opening night, but I saw Golden State was favored by 9, knowing how much press Golden State was getting, I would have said take the 9,
Right.
because I think they would have dominated. Like when you see things that are obvious, generally take them. You will most likely win if it's obvious. If it's not obvious and it's hairy, take the opposite side. Like just because as we know, Vegas loves to do this thing, and the spreads love to do this thing where they love to tease you and they love to make you think. And the moment they start doing that, just go the opposite way, and then just kind of hang back. Don't put a lot of money on it. If you got a parlay going, just say, hey, I'm going to take this opposite. Like if you got 2 parlays that you think are already good out of the 3, take the third one and just say, hey, that one looks kind of weird. I'm going to go the opposite way on that and let it ride. I mean, that's what I do.
I
So.
think for a perfect example tonight, you got Golden State favored by 11.5 or 12, depending on the book, at New Orleans.
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah.
early season like that, I think that's a good place to take the home dog.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, just take New Orleans and the points and see what happens. I mean, if New Orleans loses, look, if they lose by 10, you still got money. I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to. And I honestly think, in my personal opinion with that game, I can easily see the Golden State Warriors coming out and absolutely just crushing them, knowing that they got embarrassed on national TV. But
Right.
at the same
revenge there.
Right, but at the same time, knowing what you saw on opening night, do you really feel confident giving them 11.5 points on the road after they just got crushed? Granted, the Spurs are good,
Right.
but New Orleans, after what Anthony Davis just did, and knowing that Golden State has nothing down low in the paint, I think Anthony Davis might go off again tonight. And even if they lose, they're going to lose by 6-7 points. That's money. That's easy money right there.
Yeah, I agree. Got a couple of questions over there. Coming from Florida, man, when you get to the Southeast Division, Simo, what do you think about my Magic?
Oh man, a Magic question, really? You're gonna do this to me?
I'm sorry.
Look,
man.
here's the thing. Well, no, it's not a bad thing. It's just from the standpoint of I am so frustrated with this Orlando Magic organization. Look, this is what they had going into last season. They had Elfrid Payton, they had Victor Oladipo, they had Tobias Harris, and they had Aaron Gordon, and they had Nikola Vucevic. They're set up for the future. That team was absolutely set up for the future. And then what do they do in the draft this last draft during the summer? What do? They trade literally the entire farm for Serge Ibaka. Are you serious? Like, you had everything set up, and Victor Oladipo was just coming into his own as an offensive threat. He was a great defender already, perimeter defender, and then you get rid of him. And I don't have a knock against Evan Fournier. I think he's fantastic. But Elfrid Payton now really – look, he was developing with Victor, and now that's gone. I love Aaron Gordon. I love their bench. Mario Hezonja is going to step up this year. Serge Ibaka is a great defender, but – he's a free agent next year. He is not going back to Orlando unless they just come out of nowhere and dominate. But in all reality, I think this Orlando team took a step back. I love Frank Vogel, though. Don't get me wrong. If that guy can implement his culture like he did in Indiana, this team will be competitive and tough this year. But for the most part, look, trading that roster, if they would have just kept the roster the same and then brought in Frank Vogel, I would sit back and say, man, 45 wins is an easy opportunity, but knowing that they just got rid of everybody and messed up that chemistry, man, if they win 30 games, that's a win for them. It's right. Tough out in Orlando.
All right. Got another comment there. Shout out to my Aussie baller, Dante Exum. I used to watch your old man play ball for my hometown, Geelong Supercats, when I was a kid. Funny the path life takes. All right. All right, guys. Thanks for the questions and comments. I appreciate it. We like to get you guys as much involved as possible. Hopefully, when we have our next show here, we will implement our LongShots TV Play of the Week for the NBA. And hopefully, we'll be able to get some advice from Simo on that to make sure we're making the right picks on this. So looking forward to that. All right, Simo, it's been great talking to you tonight.
Absolutely.
A lot of good knowledge. Look forward to talking to you again real soon. We're going to hopefully do this on a weekly basis and put together a roundtable as well where we can all sit and talk a little bit about the games and see what's going on out there and get everybody involved. So, all
Sounds
right.
great.
Look forward to talking to you next time, guys. Thanks a lot for joining LongShots TV. Remember to take a shot with LongShots because we are the game. Even get to bronze.
Yeah.